oh, this person died. Do you feel them around? And they're like, yeah, I do. Again, I heard the voice, do you want to live or do you want to die? But I was watching above, I was floating above, and I could see my little body on the couch. And I could hear Dr. Bouch, and he was saying, you've got to wake her up every hour or she will die. Actually, a lot of diseases for many people come from situations where somebody says something and you believe it as a kid. Was obsessed with going to all my friends' churches, trying to understand love. Nobody in any of those churches helped me. That I was more in control of my life than I realized. Mm-hmm. That's where the life change happened.
I'd like to welcome to the show, Karen Laurie. How you doing, Karen?
I feel wonderful. How about you, Alex?
Very good. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your unique journey that you've had in life so far. Before we get to your near-death experience, what was your life like before you died?
Well, I've actually died twice, and the first time
Okay.
was when I was 3.
Okay.
So I don't know too much about what it was like. I do remember when I was really young, and I just when I was really young, I used to. This is goofy, but and it might have been after the first one when I was 3, but or 4 maybe. I would run uh, down the hall to the mirror in my mom and dad's bedroom as fast as I could. I was trying to see who I was because I knew I wasn't the little body that I was, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I would
Mm-hmm.
run super fast and try to catch who I really was in the mirror because it I knew it wasn't me. And so that's kind of I maybe that was after the first near death experience. But I also felt like houses around me, I felt like I had never been on a set, like in a movie set. In the movie set, they'll show a house, but it'll just be like the first, the front and maybe a side facade usually, unless they're doing it on location. And it looked like that to me. I would always try to run really fast before they put up the wall for the side of the house. I knew there was something bigger. I just didn't know how to see it, or feel it, if that makes sense.
That makes
So
sense. So what actually happened when you were 3?
my neighbors, I might have been 4, I'm not sure, but
Okay.
my neighbor kids, all the kids, we had a whole bunch of kids in our neighborhood. It was like everybody, every family, but every house almost had, multiple kids. So I was on a big wheel and they were on bikes. Most of them were older, and we were going around the block, and I was trying to keep up, and I was, pedaling really hard. And then there was a tree, and there was right near the tree, there was the sidewalk came up, and it looked daunting, to my little low body there. And so I'm trying, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope I can make it over that hill, and I hit the concrete of the far side, and my big wheel went flying, and I went towards, and I remember the flight. I liked the flight, but I
Mm-hmm.
went towards the tree. It was a sycamore tree, and I didn't remember anything for 22 hours, I think. I was, or maybe it was 19 hours, something like that. I don't know. It was 3 o'clock, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then it was noon when I woke up the next day.
Wow. And what happened during that time?
I didn't remember this, but I did remember it, and it helped me cure one of my diseases called narcolepsy, which was where you wake up all the time at night and then you're exhausted, falling asleep during the day. Um, what happened was Dr. Bouch, he was my pediatrician. He came to the house, and I was above. I was watching above. Um, Although I didn't remember this until like 10 or 15 years ago. But I was watching above. I was floating above, and I could see my little body on the couch. And I could hear Dr. Bouch, and he was saying, you've got to wake her up every hour or she will die. And I saw my little body believe, I better wake up every hour or I will die. And that's narcolepsy.
Mm.
And when I saw it, whenever it was years ago, I was very relaxed. And then that memory came back to me, and I saw the whole thing, and I realized that my little self had believed that in order to live, I have to wake up every hour. And I healed it. I did some fast healing actually. And then that night was the first time I slept through the night. And then it started to get better and better. My sleep, I don't need any of the narcolepsy medicines anymore. The doctor, I told him I had cured it, and he didn't have any curiosity. He's a good guy too. I really liked him. We always saw each other at the grocery store, and we always hugged, and he showed me pictures of his kids. But once I said I didn't need, the medicine anymore, that was it. And so that was the first one. And I believe that that's where actually a lot of diseases for many people come from situations where somebody says something, and you believe it as a kid, and then you live it out as you keep going.
Well, it sounds like your subconscious mind grabbed onto it, and then on a subconscious level, that's what you had to do, and that was the program that was playing on your background. This is very interesting because we all run on subconscious programming, all of us, since we were basically those first 7 years is where we get most of our programming. But I hadn't heard one about something that happened on the other side, or something that happened that was more of a, what's a metaphysical source of it, which is what you saw, which is basically a near-death experience. So your near-death experience triggered a subconscious programming, which you had to work throughout your life. That's a pretty fascinating. I've talked to a lot of near-death experiencers. I've never heard that one before. So that's a really interesting way. And it also proves how powerful the subconscious mind really is, and to be really careful what you believe.
Exactly. Yes. And, people get it from all sorts of things. You can even get subconscious programming in utero, like when you're in your mom's belly, depending on whatever you're thinking about or talking about, or even from TV, even from radio. We are so easily programmable in the first 6 or 7 years of life, including when you're in utero. So it sounds like you really understand that, and that's fantastic.
Yes, I've had to deal with it myself. I've worked through my own stuff. I didn't die, but I almost did a few times. So, all right. So you really didn't remember that first one. So other than you didn't remember it up until recently. So between 4 years old or 3 or 4 years old and to the point where you had your other near-death experience, what was your life like? Were you spiritual? Did you have any recollections of that near? It sounds like you didn't have any real recollections about that near-death experience. So what was your life like?
I didn't have recollections about it at all. It was just a complete blackout from that early one. But I was obsessed with psychic phenomena. I was obsessed with I think his name was Raymond Moody. I read all these books. I read Raymond Moody's books. I was like third grade, fourth grade, just like devouring books about people who had died and come back. And I was really fascinated, and I was really interested. My mom is Greek, and in Greek, there are 3 forms of love: agape, philia, like Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, and eros, like erotic. It's a sexual love, and agape is kind of like Christian love, or love for everybody. And so my mom and dad didn't go to church. And so I was obsessed with going to all my friends' churches, trying to understand love. Nobody in any of those churches helped me understand love, but I went, I was going to, can I go to your church? I went to Catholic churches. I went to temples, Jewish temples. I went to mosques. I went to every kind of thing that I could find to see if I could understand what love was. But I didn't really get it till later.
So as you were, how old were you when you had your last near-death experience?
18.
Oh, 18. So you were still fairly young. You were still fairly young when you had it. So tell me what happened on that day?
That day I was doing a modeling job. I had sailed to Hawaii. So I was living on a boat, but then they were doing a modeling job with me on a different boat, a big boat. And our boat was like 44 foot. This one was like 76 foot. And we were doing I was doing a modeling job, and it was a spinnaker flying. Spinnakers are the really beautiful, big, huge sailboats that are out at the front of the boat usually. And what they do for spinnaker flying, it's attached at the top of the mast, and then the 2 ends of the spinnaker come down, and they put a little seat in, and you go flying. And it was gusting. It was about 30 to 40 knots, kind of inconsistent gusts. And I'd never been spinnaker flying. So they said, just just one guy went up first, and he was being bounced around, and he was probably, you know, 280 pounds, and I was probably 100. And so I get on the spinnaker, and I didn't have the ballast. You know, I'm holding on, but I didn't have any ballast to keep the spinnaker in the proper sail position. So
Mhm.
it went up, and then it whipped, and then it whipped me onto my back onto the ocean. And
Oh,
oh, it was painful. It was, and then so the air got knocked out of me, and it was way past, you know, Hawaii's a volcano island. So it's on
mhm.
Oahu, and so the volcano, you know, is under the water for a while, but after the volcano, you know, it's just 2 miles deep or a mile and a half or something like that. It's pretty deep. And so I went down like a rock. And I probably got a concussion. I got completely disoriented. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know where I was. I got down so deep that I couldn't tell where the surface was. I couldn't tell if it was that way or that way or that way. I was so disoriented, and I didn't have any energy. I hadn't been able to breathe. Obviously, I'm underwater. And although I think babies can breathe underwater, so maybe I could have been able to breathe underwater. I just didn't know how to do it. But I then started to give up. You know, it was so hard. It was just so hard. And I was so disoriented. And I started to give up. And I felt myself go into this light. And it felt like there were people there that loved me. And it felt
Mm.
like total acceptance. And it felt like love. It felt beautiful. And it was so attractive. And I was so interested in it. And then I heard a voice that said, "Do you want to live or die?" And I thought of my mom, and I thought how my mom would be devastated, you know, if I died. And so I thought, I want to live. And within a second, I was removed from that energy, and I was being pushed towards the surface. It was like I had rockets on my feet. It was that kind of a feeling. I still couldn't breathe. Um, and I finally get up to the thing, and I can't get a breath because the air had been knocked out of me. So I didn't have any ability to breathe still. And there's a guy from the boat, and he was throwing a life vest, but the waves are big, you know, and it's very, you know, it's kind of tumultuous, good 10 feet maybe. So I don't have any air. I can't swim to the life vest. It's maybe 30 feet away, 40 feet away. I'd gone pretty far from the boat. And so then I started to slip back down into the water, and I started to feel that beautiful love again, that total acceptance, that welcoming feeling. And again, I heard the voice, "Do you want to live or do you want to die?" And I again thought of my mom. Thank you, Mom. And and I said, "I want to live." And I don't know. The next thing that happened was I was on the lifesaver. I don't know how
Mm.
I got there. I just got there, and I just somehow got there, and it was far. I don't still hadn't breathed. He's pulling me in, and then he was on the rope ladder, and then he put me over his shoulder and climbed up the rope ladder. They had to pump my stomach, you know, just like make me throw up. And then they had to give me mouth to mouth before I breathed. So I was probably out for like 10 minutes. So that was my thing. I was black and blue the next day, all up and down my spine, my whole back, my spine. I have a broken bone somewhere, and I don't know where I broke it on my clavicle. And maybe it was there. I don't know.
So when you were you gone for about 9 minutes, 9 or 10 minutes, like you were dead, like non-breathing,
I wasn't
essentially?
able to breathe. I wasn't able to breathe for 9 or 10 minutes. Um,
Right.
I think
Generally,
I
that
was,
means you're dying. Generally.
well, I mean, Wim Hof
Depends
can go
on,
like
we're not
that.
all Wim Hof.
There's also a magician who held his
Yeah.
breath like in Times Square or something for
Yeah, David
16 minutes.
Blaine. Yeah,
Yeah,
David Blaine.
yeah.
No,
It's crazy.
I know humans generally have the capacity to hold their breath for 9 minutes, but in a stressful situation like that, you're taking in water, like you're pretty much disconnected at that point.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I didn't remember hardly anything about the thing. I didn't even remember the love feeling like by the
Mhm.
next day. I was just in pain, and that's all I knew. I probably broke, you know, I don't know if I broke other bones. But this bone was broken. I don't know if I have other bones in my back that were broken. They could have been. I don't know. I never checked it out. I was 18, and I just drank
Yeah.
some alcohol so I didn't feel bad. You know?
So when
I don't
you
think
so when you
I
so when you
are,
were
but
on the other side, did you see anything or was it all feeling?
it was light. It was this beautiful golden light. And I felt like I could see almost like an an energy of people I knew, but I didn't know who they were. But it was this, I knew they were there. And it seemed very welcoming, but I couldn't, it wasn't like I could make out their faces or anything like that. It was more like a like an etching, but an etching with maybe from energy or something like that. It's hard to,
Light
I'm not sure.
beings almost like
Yeah,
light
maybe
beings.
that's a good way to say it. Yeah. I just didn't
Yeah,
have
kind
that
of like
word.
light being.
Yeah.
And when you heard the voice, male voice, female voice, did you recognize the
It's,
voice?
it felt masculine, felt like a male voice. Did I recognize it? I, I may have, but I didn't remember that I had, if that makes sense. I was so, I was so disoriented and so confused, but it was so clear. I think it's the same voice that I had throughout my life that would say, don't go there, do this, do that, that kind of thing. But I wasn't really aware of it before that, or even
Is
after
it?
that for a long time.
It sounds like that could have been a spirit guide. If it's that little voice that talks to you during your life, it could be that.
Yeah, it felt like it was my spirit. Now, when I look back on it, it felt like it was my spirit, but I
Mhm.
didn't know I had a spirit back then.
Fair enough. So when you came back out, and there was nothing else that you could remember, even when you went back the second time, it was just a repeat of the first time. Like when you went
Yeah,
back in down.
it was just, it didn't last as long. The first time I was in it for a while, um,
Really? So
it was,
anything else happen during that time, or was it just the light beings?
no, I just felt like all the pain in my body went away. I just felt completely like it felt like I was home.
So when you came back, you obviously recovered. You're black and blue. Did you remember how long how much time passed until you remembered what you had gone through?
I remembered it 16 years ago.
Really? So you kind of blocked it out for all that time.
I think so. I mean, it was so, I mean, I knew I'd had the accident and I knew I'd, had some problems, but I didn't really, it didn't like 16 years ago, I had a real spiritual awakening, or 16 or 17, I'm not sure, but I had a real spiritual awakening, and my life, I was in my house, nothing was going on, but my life passed before my eyes. And I literally saw all these experiences in my life that I had never, thought about. And they all started coming in, and that was one of them. And I saw the whole thing, and it just all came back.
So it sounded like when you had that awakening, it's almost like a life review.
It felt like a life review. And what I was seeing was, this is what was so interesting. Every single time I was having fun, I saw all this good stuff that happened. Every single time that I was not having fun, and like that modeling job, I didn't feel comfortable to begin with on that boat with the people. Um, but as I would see where I was not having fun, I would see how things I didn't want happen to me. So it was a really clear understanding of how much my my mood impacted my life. That's what it was. It was a review of how much of my mood is is dictating my life, and both sides of it, the good mood or the bad mood. And I was, that's what gave me the spiritual awakening in a lot of ways, because it was like, oh my God, every time I'm in a good mood, good things happen. Every time I'm in a bad mood, bad things happen. It was so uh, obvious.
Rudimentary, if you will.
Exactly.
So when you had so between 18 and 16 years ago, um, you never thought about this. Your life just went on normally. Did you investigate more near-death experiences? Did you go down a spiritual path? Did you ignore it? What happened during that time?
I did a lot of drinking and drugs. I was trying to
Mm,
sue something. I ended up stopping that just a couple of years later, like when I was 23. But for a
mm,
few years, I really I couldn't think about any of that. It just seemed, it didn't make sense to me and I didn't understand it. So I just kept drinking and, you know, uh, doing anything that was available. I
Right.
mean,
Exactly.
I didn't go very dark, and I couldn't do it for very many years, but it was something that there was a pain in my body that was so extreme from that thing. And then I did still have I've always had some psychic stuff, or at least since I was 3 or 4, I've always had psychic experiences where I've known things, and those just have been increasing um, and increasing and increasing. I was going to say, I believe everybody has a capacity to be psychic. It's just that
Absolutely.
I think for me, it was I was passionate about it. I was very interested in it. Some people aren't as interested, and some people don't believe it when they are psychic. And it doesn't feel like I'm special or anything like that. It just feels like I've had this desire, and then I've had experiences that sort of became very obvious again about being psychic, that there was something that was going on that I didn't know how I was doing it, but I was doing it.
So during those years, that it sounded like you were trying to numb pain, and it was a physical pain or an emotional pain or both.
Both. I also had trauma. You know, I went to a church where the minister was a pedophile. When I didn't go to the church, but my friends invited me to go to the youth group. And they said, you're going to love this minister. He's great. He's great with youth.
Hmm.
Well, he was a pedophile. And everybody he hired was a pedophile. And the minister of the church, the main minister, was a pedophile. And then they sent me, when I was in 7th or 8th grade, they sent me to the school psychologist who was a pedophile. And so it was just like, I don't know what was going on. I grew up in Long Beach, but there was something going on,
There's something in the
there.
water. Yeah.
It could have been. I do believe somebody told me, I haven't researched this, so this might not be true, but somebody said that they were experimenting with putting LSD in the water in certain cities. And I'm like, I bet you it was in Long Beach.
I've been to Long Beach. I completely understand what you're saying. Uh, so,
Yeah.
so during that time, when you had the spiritual awakening, um, when all this information started to come back, how did you process this? Like, how did you process a life review, essentially, your life being flashed before your eyes, you remembering your near-death experience, all of these things? I got to believe psychologically there was a transitional point. You just didn't accept it all in, or did you?
It was so clear to me that I was more in control of my life than I realized.
Hmm.
That's where the life change happened. I saw it so clearly, and I got exhilarated or exhilarated or exhilarated. I got exhilarated by the feeling that, oh, we're all in the driver's seat more than we know. Of course, there's other
Hmm.
things that are happening around us, but we have much more power with accessing our good feelings to create more goodness. That's kind of how it happened for me. So
Hmm.
it got me very excited because I thought, oh, I can start to do this. I knew I had things in my life. I had a lot of depression, but I had things in my life that really made me happy, like doing acrobatics or flying the trapeze or any of those things that I like to do, gymnastics, all those things. So I started to do that more, going to the beach, being out in the ocean, scuba diving. I just started to do as many of those things as I could that I liked. And I also started to write out appreciation. So I started to look at, what do I appreciate? My life was messed up at that time. I was getting a divorce. I'd been diagnosed bipolar. I'd been diagnosed as DID, dissociative identity disorder. I'd been diagnosed as suicidally depressed. They said I would kill myself in the next 8 years. So
Oh boy.
I wasn't having the best of time. But when I saw this, I thought, okay, I really want to get into that place of feeling good. What can I do? So I did as many of the things I could, but I also had the narcolepsy and I didn't have as much energy. So I did a couple things. One, I started writing out appreciation, and I'd say, I appreciate trees, but I wouldn't stop there. I'd say, I love how there's a mother tree. I love how the trees are connected to other trees. I love how the mother tree knows which trees came from her acorns. I love that there's a mycorrhizal fungi between the tree roots, sending nourishment and love from the mother to the babies and from the mother to neighbors if the babies were fine, sending antibodies to make sure that if the mother saw that there was something going on, she'd send the right antibodies to the baby. Like, I love the ocean. I've had massive experiences with dolphins where they have been, very, very attracted to me. And so I would talk about dolphins. When I sailed to Hawaii, I was listening to a Bach concerto and my sailing partner was asleep. And I was at the tiller and reading a book, and I had my hand in the water, and something went under my hand, and I looked, and it was a dolphin. The dolphin was definitely smiling. It was happy. And I looked up. I had been not focused out on the outer thing. I was in the book. And so I looked up, and there were dolphins
Everywhere.
everywhere. And I don't know if it was 2,000, 4,000, and
Oh,
they were
wow.
dancing. They were dancing to Bach, and they would go underwater. I think they choreographed it. They'd go underwater, do their choreograph, and then they'd come up and they'd all do a corkscrew and land on the crescendo, or land on the beat. Some were just bouncing to the beat. Some of them were doing, corkscrew things up and then landing on the beat. And they knew the music. It felt like they knew the music, right? So that was another experience that came to me because I had always wanted to sail. And it just worked out that somebody that I loved, the boyfriend I had in my first year of college, was going to sail to Hawaii. And he said, do you want to come? And we'd never talked about sailing, but I was obsessed with sailing. And so, so these dolphin energy. So so I rewriting out my appreciation. I love dolphins. I love that dolphins understand music. I love that dolphins choreograph their dance. I love that dolphins dance. I love that dolphins are attracted to me. That one dolphin stayed under my hand. I love that dolphin and I had communion. I love seeing how brilliant they are. One time I was scuba diving and there was a girl, the dolphin went right up to the girl's belly and was like, and we went, when we got up, the dive instructor said, are you pregnant, to that girl? And she said, no. And he said, get a pregnancy test. And the next day, the girl came back and she said, you're right, I'm pregnant. And he said, yeah, the dolphin was doing a sonogram, not the gram part, but doing a sonar, and was perceiving that life, and the dolphin got excited. So that was stuff that made me feel so appreciative. So I went into detail about what I appreciated about all the things. I love flying trapeze, so this is what I could do when I didn't have the energy to have like that much life, but I could appreciate the things that I had lived that I liked.
When you had this awakening and you remembered your near-death experience, how long did you hold on to that information, or how long before you jumped out of the closet, of the spiritual closet, and started talking about this in a public way? Because I know a lot of near-death experiencers hold on to these things because they're afraid of what people will think and all of that kind of stuff. And you're an actress, so I know that and I worked in Hollywood as well, so I know that you're probably a little bit more open than others about that stuff. But how did you deal with it? How did you process it?
There was a period of time before I could talk about it too much. But one of the other things I had done besides writing out appreciation was I'd made a meditation for myself, because my body and my mind, I had chronic pain. I had the narcolepsy. I was always tired. I had the bipolar and the suicidal depression, all that stuff. So I was very, didn't have a lot of capacity at that point, but I was working on having the capacity. So I made a meditation saying, talking to my body and my mind, saying basically that they'd gotten this and this, all the things that I wanted that I was struggling from, the opposite of what I was experiencing. And I went for a walk. I'd been listening kind of consistently for about 6 months. And I went for a walk and I was listening to it while I was walking. So I was conscious. I hadn't really paid attention because I would usually fall asleep when I listened to it. So I was conscious going on this walk, and I was like, oh, that thing, that came true. 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 And that's when I started to announce it. And I literally went on Facebook that day and said, this is what it was like. This is what it's like now. If anybody wants to work with me, let me know. And I got somebody like an hour later that was my client. Like she immediately reached out, and she remained my client for a while. And then she referred me to other people, and then other people were doing it. It just was this snowball thing. And part of the thing that I was depressed about is I am an actress, but I didn't have the energy to act. I had fallen asleep on camera at an audition,
Oh,
and
oh, you poor thing.
on camera. I'd fallen asleep on camera during a movie when I was at a movie. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, so that one
Sure, fair
I
enough.
was bad about, but still, it was, it was falling asleep on camera on the movie. So, yeah, so I didn't know what I could do, but then all of a sudden, this whole different world of being a benefit to people came forth. So it was, and that was part of the meditation, is that I'm doing work that feels really good, and it feels like love, and it feels like beautiful, and it feels like it's helping the world, in some way. And so then I just started to help people, and that shifted. And I didn't even meet, that wasn't what I was really looking for. It just happened.
Do you fear death anymore?
No,
Not
no,
even, not even a little bit.
no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'm not suicidal, and
Fair.
I'm not saying that people should go and die, because there's something about, I, part of the thing that happened also is that my dad, who had been dead, and my ex-boyfriend, who had killed himself, came to me when I was in that sick place, and they both started to help me. And it was really interesting, because I said to my ex-boyfriend, I go, Johnny, what are you doing here? I said, I thought you if you're in hell, you're in, I mean, I thought if you kill yourself, you're in hell. And he goes, there is no hell, Karen. I said, why do they always talk about it? And my dad goes, crowd control. If people
It's a
are afraid
great
of hell.
line.
Isn't
That's a
that
great
great?
line.
Oh my God, they're so funny. And so Johnny also helped me, because he would sing a song. He'd written a song for me that Belinda Carlisle from the Go-Go's sang
Hmm.
when I was 20. I Feel the Magic, that's what it's called. So
Hmm.
he had written that song for me, and he would sing the refrain in my ear every time I started to go into a negative loop. So I would start to think about something I didn't like, or get a resentment or whatever, and I would hear this song. I feel the magic like I never felt before.
Hmm.
Imagine that it's always been there, that kind of thing. And it would go into my head. And then I would realize that Johnny was there, And so, and then my dad would give me guidance to be a benefit to my mom. I made this book for my mom where I got everybody in our family and all of her friends and coworkers that I knew, everybody, and my friends that loved her, that grew up with her, to write a letter to her about what they appreciated about her, and put their picture. So I have this book now. My mom has it and my brother has it. I made it 3 copies, and my cousin. And so it's this book. It has her picture on the cover, and it's like, you're the best mom in the world. And then it has all these letters that are so loving and so sweet about different things that she had done and how much they appreciated her. And that was my dad's idea, because yeah, that was, I mean, he was dead, but he gave me I thought it was a great idea.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you had a lot of psychic phenomenon happening to you. I mean, you're talking to your dead ex-boyfriend, your father, all these kind of things. Did you ever just think this was weird, or did you just automatically just accept it?
It had happened so much from my life, where I had experience where I knew things. I was, before I went sailing, I was studying with my neighbors next door, and I jumped up and I said, I've got to go make a phone call. And they said, you can call from here. I said, no, I can't. And I ran downstairs with all my books and ran up to my place and called my friend in the dark, and I said, Teresa. She goes, hello. I go, Teresa, what happened? What's wrong? And she said, my mom and dad were in a plane crash.
Oh.
And so this is still, I'm like, I think I was just 18. I was just barely 18. So I went back, like, one of the next weekends that I could go back from college, and I went back to be with her. She was living with her mom, and we were in her bedroom. She loved Teddy Pendergrass, so we were listening to that. And and then I said, do you smell that? And she goes, yeah. I said, is that carnations? And she said, yeah, that's my dad's favorite flower. I said, let's go talk to your mom. And we ran down the hall, and the smell got stronger and stronger as we went towards her room. And her mom said, come in. We knocked on the door and mom said, come in. And mom's sitting in the rocking chair and she's crying. And she said, he's here. And the scent of the chrysanthemums was so strong that it was undeniable. There was none in the house. It wasn't like it was so strong. So we just were like, whoa, so that kind of thing was happening in early years. It happened in other times too. So it just was stuff I understood. Like I was already comfortable with it by the time Johnny was coming to me. I'd had so many dead people that came to me before that. Even
Really?
okay, this is another thing. My dog, when I was married, my dog and my husband's dog had died. Reuben, oh, he was so great. So Reuben had died, and I was driving one day and I heard something in the back of my car. So I get out to see if there's something in the trunk, and there's nothing in the trunk. It's all empty. And I'm like, that's weird. And so I get back in the car and I'm putting the seatbelt on and I feel this energy, and it felt like Reuben. And it felt like Reuben just kissing me all over. And I was like, Ruby, is that you? Oh my God, Reuben, I love you. And I'm just like holding him, even though he's energetic. And he said, you got to call your ex-husband. I said, I'm not going to call my ex-husband. We're getting a divorce. And he's like, you got to call your ex-husband. I was like, but he was saying the name. I just, whatever, keeping privacy. Anyway,
Sure.
so I was like, no, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable to do that. And then he kept saying it. He kept insisting it. And then when I woke up, I went to bed. And then I woke up in the morning. I was about to go to the beach. I would meet my friends to go work out on the beach. And Reuben was there, like, you got to call him. You got to call him. You got to call him. And he wouldn't leave me alone. I couldn't even leave the house. I was so insistent. And I said, why, Reuben? Why? And he goes, he's going to get a dog and it's going to be me. And I was like, okay, I'll call him. So I said, hi, it's Karen. Is this an okay time to interrupt? And he goes, sure. Because I'm just in the car with my daughter. And I said, oh, tell her hi. I said, I think I got a message. I said, this might be a little weird, but I think I got a message from Reuben. And there's this silence. And he goes, what was the message? And I said, he said, you're going to get a dog and it's going to be him. And then there's this long silence. And he said, we're driving to Santa Barbara to pick up a dog. And I was like, okay, I see why you were so insistent, Reuben.
It's happening now. It's happening now.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounds like you've had a lot of these experiences throughout your life. So you've always had this kind of psychic tendency, if you will.
Yeah, but again, I think a lot of it comes from, being interested in it from the beginning. From being a little kid, trying to understand what is that thing where I know I'm not this body. What is
Hmm.
it? Where I know that house is not real, but why does it keep acting like it's real? Or when I know it's fake,
Hmm. Hmm.
it was just something that was part of my experience. And then my dad also was very psychic. Even when I was maybe 15, my dad jumped up and he said, I got to call Freddie. He was a twin and Fred was his brother. And he said, I got to call Freddie, something's wrong. And he called his brother who was in Wisconsin, and his brother was sobbing, and his son he had 6 kids, and it's all girls except for this one son. And the son had been playing chicken and lost,
Hmm.
like stupid things.
Like,
And but it was immediate. Like my dad immediately knew and had to
yeah.
call his brother. So he had it. But it was, I think we all have it. It's just that either you're embarrassed about it. I've talked to so many people, oh, this person died. Do you feel them around? And they're like, yeah, I do, you know? So I think so many people feel it. It's just that it's not talked about enough.
Well, I mean, we're trying to help that with the show as we
I love
do.
that. I love that you're helping that. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think also a lot of people deny that in themselves and also um, are afraid of it because of the programming that they've gotten throughout their lives, like the whole concept of hell, which is ridiculous,
Right.
and that kind of stuff. I was raised Catholic, so I was always this doesn't make sense. You mean this God that loves me, I eat meat on Friday and it's over, or I do this one little thing and it's done. Like that didn't make, it just didn't, it didn't really compute really well. So I think that a
Mhm.
lot of people do have that issue with themselves that they might, if they give themselves the permission, you have been giving yourself the permission since you were young to feel it. You were interested in it. You wanted it and it came. But I agree with you 110%. Every single one of us has the same abilities as anybody else. It's just about opening those doors, allowing for it to happen. I always tell people that we all can play basketball, but we're not all Michael Jordan. There are people who come in with a little bit higher ability, maybe from past lives or something like that, that they can turn it on like that. You obviously had something like that where you were able to turn it on because I know a lot of people who were very interested and could not get anything to happen, could not get any messages, could not get. So you had some inclinations, I think, but you built on it. But we all have the ability though.
I really believe we have the ability. It sounds like you really have had your own experiences that I'd love to hear about at some point. Um, but the thing about, let's say, Michael Jordan had a desire that
Big time.
made him love it, made him show up for practice. Some people don't have that desire. I showed up
Correct.
to, I've been meditating. I think sailing was my first meditation actually, because my my mind felt like it had been encapsulated in those golf balls you take off the olden times, you take off
Yeah. The
the golf
cover.
ball, and it's all these it's this long rubber band that just goes it goes out. That's what
Yeah.
sailing did, because there was no other boat, there was nothing, there was no light pollution, there was no music. I mean, we had the music of a tape, but not very many tapes, so it was not like that. I just had books, my partner, and a few tapes. This is a long time ago. And so the my mind literally felt like it was like an opened golf ball, and that it was just like, and I think that was my very first experience of learning how to meditate, because it was so peaceful. There was nothing you had to do except for, live. But there was nothing, there was not a lot that there was nothing you were required to do. There was nothing about time. There was nothing about, what do people think, nothing. So it was, I think, the first experience of meditation.
Can you talk a little bit about meditation in the sense that so many people, it's one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time because I've been meditating probably close to 7 years, an hour a day, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours a day, um, on pretty much solid. Here and there I miss it if I'm sick or if I'm traveling. Sometimes it's hard. But generally speaking, I've stayed on that schedule. And people are fascinated, like, how do you do it? Like, what is your meditation? What is your mantra? And I'm like, listen, I just close my eyes and I just do me. And I'm able to get to a certain place in my meditations. I go, but you don't need to sit down in the Himalayas in a cave to meditate. And I love that you've brought the sailing option up because can you talk a little bit about that? There are other meditations, walking meditations, nature meditations, even as an artist, and you know this as an artist, when you get in the zone, it's a meditation. Like the creative zone is a meditation in its own right.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. That feels wonderful that you're meditating so long. I've been meditating 35 years, and at a certain for years I was doing 2 hours twice a day, morning and evening,
Mhm.
2 hours.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was great. So part of the thing, people are meditating all the time, they don't realize it. So you could meditate, like if people are looking out at a nature scene, like you were saying, and their mind kind of goes quiet, that's a meditation. If people are running and they get into that runner bliss, that's a type of meditation. If people are even checking their breathing, doing some sort of controlled breathing while they're doing, like I use good, most of the time, I use good breathing for when I work out. And so that's a type of meditation because my focus is on my breath. And also, you say you just close your eyes. There's so many ways to meditate, and every person will have what works for them. But one of the things I found that helps me is I write out something I'm appreciative about first. So I have that good feeling and I'm already like centered on my heart. And then when I'm meditating, I keep my attention on my heart because the heart is the pilot of the brain. The heart knows things. The heart is really brilliant. And so I just keep my attention on the heart and then things come in. I mean, I've had remote viewing. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but now I know. But it was, where I saw things that I was going to go and experience, and I saw it in detail. And I've seen that, and I didn't do it on purpose. I don't even know how I did it. It's just that it happened. I've levitated. I've bent spoons. All these weird things from that power of meditation and that power of being receptive. You're in that place where whatever that energy, that divine energy that knows you and knows what you want is, that energy just pours into you, and it creates this beautiful um waterfall of all that you want. And so I love that. So I like writing out the appreciation first, and I like putting my attention on my heart.
The heart is very powerful. No question about it. It's extremely powerful. Is there any words of comfort you can give to anyone who is about to lose someone or has lost someone, about what their time is going to be like as they're closing in to the other side, and if they're afraid of the other side, if either they're passing themselves, they're going through something that they know they're going to die soon, or a relative or someone who they love is seeing this happen. Any words of comfort you can give them?
Yeah, the first thing is the first law of thermodynamics is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it can only be transformed. So that person or animal or anything is going just into a new form. They're not leaving you. They can't leave you. They love
Mhm.
you and they can't go away because now they're infinite. So they can be 100% with you and 100% with somebody else on the other side of the world because they have this infinite capacity. And then one of my clients, she actually asked me to do a session with her mom. Her mom had been uh, in hospice on death's door for months and months and months. And so I went there and I realized that she was afraid because she'd been prejudiced in her life against
Mhm.
people of different race or color. And so she was afraid to die because she thought she'd go to jail. I mean, to hell, which is
Mhm.
another form of whatever. So, so she had that thought. So I just talked to her and said, I told her that law of thermodynamics, but I also said, I've died before, and it's so loving and it's so beautiful. And it feels like total acceptance and it feels welcoming and inviting. And it feels like love and harmony and peace. And she was able to let go a couple days later. And
Really?
so I think there's something about knowing that there's no hell, that it's just love,
Hmm.
knowing that there's nothing you ever did that was in the mind of your spirit. You might have done some things that in the mind of humans was illegal or wrong or something, but in the mind of your spirit, there's nothing that you can do that will stop your spirit or God, whatever you want to call it, from loving you. So no one goes away. They just come in a different form. And I mean, death is beautiful. I look forward to it when it's time, but I like being able to be in the body as well.
Hmm.
And and then the whole, there's nothing, there's no judgment. All
It's
that
like the
stuff
old,
about judgment. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's like that old saying, everybody wants to go to heaven, but just not right now. Uh,
It's a little different than that because the dead people, Johnny and my dad and others,
Mhm.
taught me that if you live in this state of joy and ecstasy and love, which I live in, you
Mhm.
get the best of both worlds. You get the same
Mhm.
ability that the dead people have to be in that peace, and then you're in that peace. And
Mhm.
so I am living in heaven already.
All the time.
I, I just am also in my body at the same time.
Well, you can get some good Chinese food down here, is what you're saying. And you see, there's both. Um, Let me ask you, Karen, why do you think this happened to you? Why do you think that you went through two near-death experiences in this life? I'm assuming you've contemplated this at one point or another.
Maybe I had been focused on something that I didn't like or something. And so I had that first experience. But then after that, I started reading, I think it was after that, all those books, all the books about near-death experiences. Every book I could find, I read about near-death experiences. It was something that I was so fascinated with. So I think, a lot of times people will read a book and it's a murder mystery and then somebody they know gets murdered or they do. I mean, you got to be careful.
Right.
Not careful, but there's a lot of things, whether it's TV or whether it's books or whether it's the news, we can kind of create what we don't want by letting somebody else tell the stories that they want to tell if they're not a positive story. So
It does make sense. It does make sense. I wanted to ask you another question as someone who's worked in the film industry for 30 years. I have the answer for myself, but I'd love to hear your thoughts of what do you think working in the entertainment industry, in the modeling industry, uh, eh, for all those years taught you? What lessons did you learn by choosing this life path, which is not an easy path by any stretch of the imagination on all sides of the camera? But even being an actress is I find it much more difficult than being a director, because of the exposure you have. Not physical, but just as an actor, you're exposing your emotions, you're exposing who you are, you're opening up for judgment, literally judgment. Like actresses will look like, did I do good? And you're, yeah, yeah, you did fine. It's that kind of energy. So I'd love to hear what you think that the reason that you chose this path, because it's a heck of a path to walk.
I chose it because, well, I I had been getting because of modeling, which just came to me. I didn't mean to do it; it just came to me. But because of modeling, I ended up taking an acting class because I'd done a couple like small roles on TV shows or something. And I took the class, and during the first exercise on the first day, I had one of those. It was almost like that death feeling. It was this golden light, and I just felt like this is the best feeling I'd ever experienced. It was
Oh yeah.
amazing. It was so beautiful and it was flowing through me. And I was studying, I was in college and I was studying mind body science. And I loved it. I loved what I was studying and I was going to be a doctor. And one day I was driving, that same voice that asked if I wanted to live or die said, do you want a life where somebody else tells you what to do? Or do you want a life of adventure? And I thought, adventure. And the next day, that was acting, was adventure. And the next day, I was having lunch with somebody and he said, I told him I wanted to be an actor. And he said, oh, you got to get an agent. And I said, what is an agent? And he said, they get you acting jobs. I said, okay. I go, how do you get an agent? He goes, you got to get a manager. I go, what is a manager? He goes, they get you an agent. And so we literally walked out of that lunch meeting. He's doing something maybe in the bathroom or whatever. And I walk outside and I'm waiting. And this woman comes up to me and she says, are you an actress? And I had made the decision the night before, right? So I was like, yeah. And she says, my name is Dolores. Here's my card. Call me tomorrow. I think I can help you. I'm a manager. She goes, I'm a manager, and I'd love to talk to you about representing you. And then as she's walking in, she says, call me tomorrow. And he's walking out and he goes, who is that? And I said, oh, she's a manager. And he goes, Jesus Christ, because it was just like so immediate. So there's something about that good feeling and that feeling of adventure. I've worked in Africa, Jamaica, Canada, Japan, all through Mexico, all over, so many different places. That's really fun. That's part of the adventure I like. And and to me, I never got touched by any of the stuff that people talk about that's negative in the acting world. I had the potential for that to happen, but I just had really clear boundaries by that point, by the time I got into acting about that. I never did anything for the money. I always did it because I loved the role or loved the experience. And I also there was something that happens when I act that I call the acting molecule, where it feels like there's this incredible connection between me and the person or the people I'm playing with, and we're so present, and there's
Mm.
this so present, so attending to the other person, listening so deeply. That was that connection feeling really made
Mhm.
it enticing.
Yeah, I try to explain to people like the once you get bitten by the bug, it's done. Like it's you can't get rid of it. It can go dormant for decades, but it always flares up. Something happens, and all of a sudden, like, hey, let's go make an indie movie. Hey, let's go do this. Hey, let's go do a play. Like it's I tell people I ran away with the circus when I was 19. Uh,
Mm.
and it's essentially we're carnies. We're basically carnival folk doing things, running around. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, but it is a very difficult path to walk. And I was just curious on if you've had contemplations on why your soul decided to choose this path this time, because there's lessons definitely to be learned by walking this path.
Oh, sure. I learned so much. I learned, part of the thing I learned that was so fascinating, every character I played had a different physiology. This was my
Mm.
mind body science that I was studying. I was on One Life to Live for 4 years,
Mhm.
four
Mhm.
plus years. And at one point I played pregnant, um and so I have a pillow and a leotard, and then it's really hard. It's in New York, and too many clothes, so you just wear the pillow out, and then everybody says, "Oh my God, you're pregnant! Congratulations!" And at first I said, "No, I'm just an actress," and then they would be like mad at me. And at that point, I didn't have the self esteem to just laugh, but instead I just stopped. I just started saying thank you, because they got so confused. So, I was saying thank you. And then, I'm playing pregnant on the show, and it's an everyday show or 5 days a week show. And I'm rubbing the pillow. And anyway, the wardrobe girl came in with a bra that I normally wear and the dress that I normally wear, the bra that I wear for that dress. And she went to put the bra on me, and my breasts overflowed. And she said,
Huh?
"Oh my God, you went from a C cup to a D cup. I got to get you a new bra. I'll be right back." I hadn't gained any other weight. It was just in my breasts. They were getting ready to have this baby. And that's
But you
how
weren't
powerful.
pregnant. But you weren't
No,
pregnant.
I was wearing a pillow. No, I wasn't pregnant, but my breasts believed the pillow, the way I looked, the way I was talking to the baby in the scenes, the people talking to me. And
Interesting.
and then when I had the baby on the show, my breast went back to a C.
The power of the mind is
It's incredible.
it's incredible. We have such a capacity for healing ourselves. We have such a capacity for changing our reality. And that's just in in the mind. Imagine what when you start to manifest things, you manifest your life. You co-create with the creator of your life and you walk when you understand that belief and you can overcome the programming of the people, the good people around you who didn't know any better to say, what are you crazy? Going to be an actress? That's insane. Why? That's not a real job. You know, get a real job, like that kind of thing. I mean, I'm a podcaster. For God's sakes, I do this, I'm a 50-year-old podcaster and I make a living doing this, helping people and doing this show. But people, my parents still say, what, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, we're fine. Like, I'm like, I have a family. I'm okay. But they just have no understanding of how we do it. So it's fascinating.
This leads to something where a lot of people will do something because they're supposed to do it. They'll
Yep.
do work they're supposed to do, or they'll do work that they're doing for the money,
Yep.
because they just think that that's the way you're supposed to do. And that's how a lot of people grow up, is you've got to work for the money. So I've got to get a job that makes a lot of money,
Yep.
or I've got to get a job that whatever at my skill level or whatever, but they're working for something. Whereas for me with acting, at least, I could not ever do a job because of the money. Like my agent called and said, "You got a great job. This is great. You're going to make $300,000." I said, "What is it?" He goes, "You're going to be on billboards everywhere." I go, "What is it for?" And I had to ask him like 3 or 4 times. And then he said, "Virginia Slims." And I said, "No, I
No,
can't do it."
that's a
It's like, so, I wouldn't do an acting thing for the money, even though I like money and I need money to live. I do it because, oh my God, this is so fun. This is so
sure.
connected. This is so beautiful. So I think for whatever reason, I was into that. versus I didn't have people's, well, my dad didn't talk to me for like 6 months, but other than that, um, when he was alive, when I started going into the acting and modeling and all the whole thing.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to be a doctor, but I just knew. There's a friend of mine. This is a long time ago. I went to a party at somebody's house in New York, and he pulled a book and the door moved, and he said, "Let me show you my secret room." And we went into the secret room, and it was all musical instruments. And it was, it had speakers and it had piano and guitars and sax and everything. And
Mhm.
I said, but you're a banker. What are you doing? And he goes, oh, the only reason I'm a banker is because my dad wants me to be a banker. And so I was like, you gotta do what you're passionate about. Are you kidding me? You're obviously passionate about it, but look at how you got it hidden. It's not even, people can't even see that you do this. It's secret. And he goes, well, I don't want my dad to see. I go, you can't let your dad. It's your life. It's your life. So I was like, this is like 30 years ago, right? So I was very passionate. And then a couple years after that, I got a call from my friend who'd invited me to that party. And he goes, Karen, guess where we are? I go, where? And he says, guess where we are? I said, I don't know. Where are you? And he goes, I'm with this guy, and he's on stage with I think it was Carly Simon. With Carly Simon, he's playing guitar with Carly Simon and he's singing. I was like, oh my God, that's so great. He goes, he wanted me to thank you. This is like, years
Aw.
later. I was like, well, I didn't do anything. I just got a little upset, at the time. But it was so funny. So he got that courage, but a lot of people won't get it. Sometimes you need
Yep.
somebody to,
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Karen, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests.
okay,
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
having communion with my spirit and with others all
Mhm.
day, every day.
Beautiful.
So I'm always happy. I'm in the flow.
If you had a chance to go back in time and speak to little Karen, what advice would you give her?
You don't have to stress about anything. Everything is in flow. Chill out, have fun, do what makes you happy. It's going to be easy. Everything will flow to you easily if you're happy.
How do you define God or source?
Love, infinite power, total understanding, total acceptance, infinite wisdom, funny, playful, caring, thoughtful, innovative, creative, genius, invincible.
What is love?
It's who we are. It's our true nature when we're not blocking it. It's the path. Love is the bridge to all you want, as Rumi says. Love is freedom. Love is power, but it's a gentle power.
Mhm.
But it's much more powerful than not gentle power. Love is it's everything. There's nothing that is not love.
If you could ask God or source one question, what would it be?
How much fun can we have? How
And
do
what
I
is the
be
ultimate
like you?
and what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Joy, love, fun, and learning,
Yeah, big
growing.
time. And where can people find out more about you and the amazing work that you're doing in the world?
I have a website. I think it's called Karen Laurie Coaching. I'm on
Okay.
X. I'm on Facebook, Karen Lorre. I'm on Facebook. I'm sort of on Instagram sometimes. Um, and I would love, if it's okay, I would love to offer my books for people to download them for free. I've written 3 books. And if people would like that, you can go to, and you can also get hold of me there. You can get my email from the books. It's chronic, like chronic pain, but it's chronic pleasure, because
Mhm.
that's what I live now. Chronicpleasurebook.com. And you can get my first 3 books. I'm writing my fourth.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. And do you have any parting messages for the audience?
You can't get it wrong. You are loved. There's beauty in you. Look for it, find it in yourself, find it in everyone. You can have what you want. You're safe. You're being guided all the time. You're probably so psychic and you don't even know it, because you've been guided and being in the right place at the right time with the right people in the right way, more than you can imagine.
Karen, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for the work that you're doing to help awaken this planet. So I appreciate you, my dear. Thank you again.
I really appreciate you. It was really fun, and it really sounds like you're on such a solid path yourself. I love it. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.